Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready? It's Jeff. It's very nice here in Maine today. Geez, unless the sun's out, not a cloud. It started off a little bit foreboding. You know, it was a little bit gray out there, but it cleared off before noon, so it's been nice. So better than it was over the weekend for the most part. Except, you know, I guess yesterday towards the end, I mean, it was getting nice out for Mother's Day, so it was good. And so not much going on here today, but news-wise, things are always happening. And so I have a couple of videos. This first one here is from Ben Marsalis, and he's going to report here on a congressman who made a demand on Trump that Trump fears the most. So let's find out what that is.
This is the letter that Donald Trump fears the most. A top Democratic Congress member is alleging that there could be a potential cover-up that may be taking place between Attorney General Pam Bondi, maybe even Donald Trump, to cover up the release of the Epstein files. Now, this letter by top Democratic Congress member Dan Goldman goes into detail about the very suspicious timeline here, from when the MAGA Republican influencers were invited to the White House to hold up phony binders claiming that they had the Epstein files, which it was not the Epstein files. It was like an Epstein call list that was released years ago. By the way, Trump's phone number and the phone number of people related to him were on that. When the MAGA influencers and the White House and Bondi were called out on that, they then said they were bringing in more FBI agents and DOJ lawyers to go through the files and actually produce it. They've blown deadline after deadline after deadline, and they're making up new excuses each time. There was undercover footage recently by a right-wing influencer, James O'Keefe, where they send someone like into a restaurant to talk to Pam Bondi. And this is like a random individual who said she was a nanny, shows up, speaks to Bondi and says, hey, when are we going to get the Epstein files? And for the first time, Bondi's now saying, well, actually, there's 10,000 like videos or tens of thousands of videos of like child pornography, and that's why. But she's never said that to the public, and she's saying it to like a random nanny who's undercover and working for a right-wing influencer who wants to see the files. Just to remind you, I want to go through this letter, but let me just show you that undercover footage quickly.
Do you know when the Epstein files are going to get released?
We hope soon. The FBI's been.
Okay.
So,
any dates?
No, you know what it is? There are tons of thousands videos,
yeah,
and it's all with little kids, so they have to go through every one.
So she says that to a random nanny and not in public. It's just excuse after excuse. This is the letter right here from Democratic Congressmember Dan Goldman that we've exclusively got here on the Midas Touch Network. It says, Dear Attorney General Bondi, I write to express my grave concern about what appears to be a concerted effort by you to delay and even prevent the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files in their entirety, potentially at the direction of the sitting president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Then goes through the timeline I talked about. February 27, 2025, to much fanfare, the DOJ claimed it was releasing the Epstein files. After the underwhelming, what they called a phase one release, they said they were going to release these files. And then the letter goes on to say it's now 74 days past the issuance of both your 24-hour demand and 14-day deadline for a comprehensive report, yet you have provided no additional materials nor an explanation of a delay. And this is written, again, by Congressmember Dan Goldman, who's a former 10-year DOJ prosecutor. And he goes, I remind you that as Attorney General, your oath of office requires you to represent the United States interest without fear or favor, not Donald Trump's personal interest. The letter then goes on to basically say, if you're redacting information, if you're deleting information that has Donald Trump's name on it, or that has his name, image, and likeness on it, or if there are videos with him on it, you need to tell us right now what the hell is going on here. Let's bring in Democratic Congressmember Dan Goldman, who sent this letter. And Congressmember, I give you a lot of credit for sending this letter. It's an important issue that people are talking about, that it seems Trump and all the MAGAs no longer want to talk about anymore. Tell us about this letter, why you think it's so important, and why you're sending it.
Well, as the letter says, and as you just recited, I think very well, there was a very aggressive move to release all of the Epstein files. And certainly you had right-wing folks calling for it. You had Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who was all over this, making threats, confronting the Department of Justice. And then after the first batch of the Epstein files were released and everyone realized this is just public information that's already been out there, the Attorney General made it very clear to blame it on the FBI and to say, oh, well, that's what I got from the FBI, so it's the FBI's fault. She then demanded to have the FBI turn over all of the materials within 24 hours, and she wanted a comprehensive report within 14 days to explain what has transpired. Now, we haven't heard anything since then, other than that one undercover comment that prompted her to say something similar publicly. And so the 24 hours goes by, the 14 days goes by, Congresswoman Luna now is quiet. Everything is very, very quiet, except when there's reporting that a bunch of agents, and it sounds like it may have been dozens of special agents with the FBI and here in the New York field office, were pulled off of their regular duties of investigating terrorism and fentanyl and corruption and securities fraud and everything that field office does in order to review around the clock the materials for redaction. Now, again, that's 2.5 months ago, and we have not heard anything. And so there was a mad dash and a big rush to release everything, and everyone was talking about it. And now there's radio silence. And begs the question, why has the Attorney General gone dark on this? Why has Congresswoman Luna and others stopped calling for it? What is it that's in the Epstein files that they were so eager to have that now are just not being released according to the Attorney General's promises of transparency, but are still there? And there's no explanation. And the concern I have, of course, is we know Donald Trump had a friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. We know Jeffrey Epstein had numerous numbers for Donald Trump. And the question then is, was this some sort of directive from Donald Trump or someone on his staff or an agent of his to the Attorney General to kill this? And that would be yet another pretty egregious act of corruption using his position as president for his own personal benefit.
Now, you're a former federal prosecutor before being a member of Congress. So you've seen in many cases documents that have redactions in it, documents that need to be filed under seal, even documents that could potentially have classified markings on it, and how you go about handling it. And you've dealt with cases that have voluminous discovery of the type or even more than what we're dealing here with in the Epstein file. And as you gear up for trials and you have teams of people, you go through it, you're able to look through it, and you're able to, produce the thing. So from a federal prosecutorial perspective, I think it's interesting also that you have the background in how you do big document reviews. And this to you strikes you as very unusual because the initial deadlines that were set based on all of your experience should have been met fairly easily. And now you bring in this massive team and they should have been met within days. Am I wrong about that, or maybe speak to that?
Well, there are a couple things that are important to remember. Child victims, minor victims, or victims in general, need to be redacted. And if there are a lot of videos, that is a more cumbersome process than just redacting out the name and social security number of somebody. So I don't mean to minimize the importance of these redactions, and B, the comprehensiveness of them. So it's possible it could be days or even weeks. And it sounded like, from reporting and rumors, that there were dozens of agents working very long hours to do this. And so if that is the case, it should not take 2 months to do it. What should not be redacted is anything related to Jeffrey Epstein or his co-conspirators or any accomplices or anyone who was with him, any adults who may have wittingly or unwittingly been involved in whatever the conduct was, and that would include Donald Trump. So if they are trying to hide this, either by redacting Donald Trump's name or any videos in which he's in, or they're just trying to kill it and keep it secret, as they have done with Volume 2 of Jack Smith's report on the classified document information, even though that investigation is completely over and there's no reason not to turn that over. This is their MO in the Department of Justice, is to act as Donald Trump's personal lawyer to protect him from politically and personally. And so I am sensitive to the need for the redaction of victims, and that may take some time, but it certainly shouldn't take this much time. And if that were the case and they intended to release it, you would expect to have heard from the Attorney General what the new timeline is and why it is. And of course, we haven't heard anything.
Because here are some of the facts too. We know, based on prior document productions, where Donald Trump's name has already appeared. It is on a call list with Trump's number, bodyguard number, and people affiliated with Donald Trump's numbers. We also know that Trump was identified as Doe 174 in one of the releases that happened a few years back. So you could pretty much go, if we were prosecutors or we were doing a document request, release all of the information relating to Doe 174, and to see what's there. We know that Trump's name appears on the flight logs at least 7 times because that had been released, but that was only a partial release of the flight logs. We know that Epstein had been on Trump's plane at least one time before. We know that Trump said that Epstein is a great guy who likes women on the younger side. There are videos of them hanging out together. We know Epstein's victims, like Virginia Giuffre, were actually found at Mar-a-Lago, and she died by suicide recently. But Ghislaine Maxwell found her working at Mar-a-Lago and then brought her to Epstein. So there are all of these, it's not a minimal connection. There are all of these things here. And, I think with this letter, you're saying, look, this is not only fair game to be asking these questions about Trump's connection. This is actually very, very, very important stuff. Release it. Tell us why you think it's so important before we go.
Yeah, that was a great recitation of all of what we would ordinarily call, circumstantial evidence, but some of it is direct evidence of Donald Trump's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, including in ways that other co-conspirators were also identified by flight logs, by phone numbers, by videos, by comments, right? This is exactly the type of thing that, as a prosecutor, you would start looking for, and then you would track down all of these different leads and speak to witnesses and try to get a fuller picture. And because there's so much smoke around here, and around Trump and Epstein, and Trump is notorious for saying one thing and doing another. As you may remember, Ben, when he said, I would love to speak with special counsel Robert Mueller. I'd be happy to do it. And then he blamed his lawyers. It depends on my lawyers. Well, what we saw in the Mueller report is a systematic effort to avoid testifying, to refuse testifying, to delay testifying, completely different than what he said publicly. And so he has a pattern of saying publicly that he wants one thing while doing something very different privately. And it certainly falls right within his standard MO to do that in this case, because if it is revealed that he is involved in these materials in a greater degree than just his name on logs and phone numbers, that could be certainly embarrassing, but it also could give rise to questions about whether he was an accomplice or involved in Jeffrey Epstein's, massive child trafficking scheme.
Congressman, one more question while I got you here, unrelated. The news broke on Sunday about Trump getting a $400 million jet from Qatar, that not only will he get it after he leaves the office, it's like bequeathed to him in perpetuity. They're saying through his library. What's your immediate reaction to that?
Well, it's breathtaking corruption. That just continues a week after a $2 billion deal that his crypto company that he has significant personal interest in is made with the UAE and another company that had been involved in crypto money laundering and other criminal activity. It is really unprecedented. This just continues. This corruption continues to escalate and escalate. And it's bad, Ben, when Laura Loomer, the sort of wacky right-wing conspiracy theorist who seems to have Donald Trump's ear, even calls it out. Even Laura Loomer has more of a spine than House Republicans in calling out this blatant corruption. As we were talking about Pam Bondi just a second ago, the thing that jumps out to me as well is that Pam Bondi ostensibly gave her blessing to this deal, saying that it is not corruption because there's no associated official act with what is clearly a bribe. And it's not a foreign gift to Donald Trump because it doesn't go to him personally. This is such bogus. It is just garbage. And there is an Office of Legal Counsel in the Department of Justice that is responsible for these types of legal memos that are binding on the executive branch. Pam Bondi has completely gutted that Office of Legal Counsel. And that Office of Legal Counsel is an independent sort of lawyer for the executive branch that calls balls and strikes and says, yes, we can do this. No, we can't. They issue memos. Those memos are cited over and over and over. Decades later, they create sort of binding precedent on the executive branch. They're just ignoring all that. They're pretending as if that is not how the Department of Justice works and that Pam Bondi gets to make decisions about what is legal and what is illegal. And by the way, the last thing on this, Ben, which I'm sure you know, is before she was Attorney General, Pam Bondi was a paid lobbyist for the Qatar government.
Well, it's a lot there to look into. And, I'm sure when Democrats, get that majority, it's going to be some important investigations to bring sunlight to all of this. But
Ben, I just want to interrupt for a second there because we can't wait until January of 2027. And this corruption is beyond anything anyone has ever seen. It is so blatant. It is so brazen. There's no dispute that it is violating the Constitution, and you can't dispute that it's violating the law, except with this completely phony rationale. And so it's not just Democrats who are responsible for upholding the Constitution. It's Republicans too. It's congressional Republicans who also take an oath to the Constitution, not to Donald Trump. And it is long past time that they stand up for their oath to the Constitution and call out Donald Trump's blatant corruption. It's not good enough to mumble in private that, oh, this is bad. It's time they come out publicly and that they call him out and they do oversight that Congress is responsible for doing. So let's not say Democrats will do this in 2027. That is far too long away far too far away for us to wait. It is incumbent upon the Republicans currently in the majority to do their damn job, and conduct oversight over the president of the United States. Stop sucking up to him so much.
I think it's a great point because, you're almost programmed at this point to be like, well, the Republicans don't give a crap about anything, but it's like, you're right. You should be calling them out right now. Yes, they are in charge and they should not be complicit in this. You're absolutely right, Congressman. Thanks for being on and thanks for that letter. It's a powerful one indeed. And keep us posted on what you hear back.
Yeah, not expecting a whole lot, but appreciate you covering it. And let's keep on it because something is really fishy here.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers.
Yeah, this thing here isn't going to go away, and I don't think it should, just because Trump is sitting in the Oval Office. I think that, for Virginia Giuffre, who committed suicide last month, clearly because of all the stress surrounding this shit that, that's been going on in her life, certainly for her and other victims like her, this cannot be buried. Okay, this is a serious thing. It was serious that it got people pissed off in this country about Jeffrey Epstein, right? And so, because he was associated with important people, we can't just ignore the other people that were part of it, And, I think that, hey, look, if you're going to punish a man, which we were going to with Epstein until he offed himself, supposedly, if we were going to punish somebody here for what he was doing, obviously the crime was bad enough that everyone associated with that crime has to be punished as well. If we give a shit at all about, trying to stop human trafficking and things like that in this country, okay, and underage girls being victimized. And, we can't just, all of a sudden be silent like it's been now. I mean, what was it, like a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, Pam Bondi sitting here saying, oh, we're going to release the names and, all this other shit about Epstein. Okay. Then a few days went by and then it was, oh, we're gonna release more stuff about JFK, almost like an attempt to try to forget about what we were saying about Epstein, And then they made deadlines on releasing information about Epstein, and they just kept not meeting them. And so people are getting kind of suspicious. And you look, for those Republicans out there that are into this conspiracy theory stuff, why aren't their mouths running over this? Why are these people so silent now? That's my question. QAnon and all these motherfuckers out there that thrive on conspiracy, why are they so quiet now and not saying a goddamn thing about why Trump is taking his sweet time letting the public see facts, which, should be released to all, right? But no, I think, like Ben is saying, they're in the background, either redacting the hell out of stuff, okay, and editing whatever videos that Pam Bondi says that they have, and she says there's a lot, okay, according to that sneaky video that was taken, okay, she says there's a lot. So, they're taking their time, I guess, basically trying to erase how much they can, so when we finally, if they ever do, okay, if they finally ever release anything, what we're going to see is only what they want us to see and nothing more. So, tampering with evidence, okay, there's a crime in that too. That's a punishable offense. And, are they going to let Trump get away with that? I can bet on that they probably will. But like I said, they're doing a huge disjustice here to people like Virginia Giuffre, who, at such a young age was used as, as a pawn for sex and stuff like that for, abhorrent individuals there that, So I think that there's got to be some movement here to to speed this up, to say, look, okay, this has been in the docket here for fucking years, and we've been trying to tap dance around it and not look too deep into it. And, you know, people are not, especially the reporters, aren't really asking a whole lot about it. Okay, this has to come out. If anybody cares at all about putting a stop to this kind of shit, and you know it still goes on, even with Epstein out of the picture, the fact that there hasn't been a whole lot done about it suggests that there's still a lot of it going on still. Maybe some of Epstein's other idiots that were a part of the cabal are on their own doing their own thing, okay? So it could still be going on. So if we can't get to the root, you know, the facts of all this, we won't know who else could be involved. You know, how are we supposed to find these people and arrest them if we slam the book down on what Epstein did just because a person his name in there happens to be the president of the country at this time? You know, why should we do that? They say justice is blind. Well, bullshit. It ain't blind at all. Okay, especially when you take a look at this fucking thing, and justice has been delayed. Okay, and you know, if this was about, you know, somebody that was an ordinary citizen, this thing would have been over and done with. Okay, the guy'd be sitting away for life or whatever. But because it's Trump, no, we can't. So how far is Trump's cabinet, his administration, going to go to cover this guy's ass? Because when they do this, they're aiding and abetting a criminal. Pam Bondi is aiding and abetting a criminal by whatever the hell she's doing that's dragging this thing out, okay? She's put herself in trouble now. Because if the shit that she's hiding is anything criminal and it comes out, because remember, there's witnesses, lots of witnesses who showed up at Mar-a-Lago and saw these things happening, okay? Anybody else talks, okay, and it doesn't show up in all the stuff that she's been looking over because they either redacted it or erased it, questions are going to be asked that they're not going to be able to answer. And they can pretend or, you know, filibuster the answers all they want, okay? But at the end of the day, you know, it's going to be, you know, their credibility will be diminished, where the credibility of the witness will be increased. You see? And so I feel like there's gonna have to be, you know, an accountability here. Somebody's gonna have to take the fall. Trump won't be the one, but I could see Pam Bondi being swept under the bus, you know, basically, and having her take the fall. But what kind of punishment would she get? I mean, the thing is if she has to take the fall for Trump, that only means Trump did something bad, right? If he has to force anybody in his administration to, you know, to be punished or something over this stuff, that only means Trump is somehow very, very well involved in this, more than he wants anyone to know. Okay. Now, I feel like, you know, the fact that this is dragging all, you know, along, it has nothing to do about national security or anything like that. Sure, there's names that can't be revealed because, like I said, these were underage girls. I mean, they were, you know, they weren't old enough, you know, to have their names put out there in a case like this. So I can see that being covered. And the thing of it is about that is that there are people who know those names. They saw them before they redacted them, right? I'd be careful if I was one of those girls about speaking out unless they got protection, because they are going to be watched. Because if they open their yap to the media or somebody like that, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these witnesses would just disappear, you know. And that's how dangerous this could get, because these are serious crimes. What Jeffrey Epstein was doing was serious fucking shit. Even he knew this. Okay? And, you know, I've suspected for a long time that, you know, Trump himself was probably very heavily involved in what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Okay? He says he knew this guy well, knew him for a long time. You don't know somebody well and for a long time and not know what they're doing in private, okay? And the fact that he probably did know and he still hung around this guy raises a lot of questions anyway, even if he didn't get involved with him. It's like, well, you knew, you had to know. You say you knew this guy well. Well, if you knew he was into this shit, why did you keep hanging around with him? Why did you end up with his private airplane and all this other shit? You know, they were very close. They were very fucking close. And so, like I said, you know, there's a lot that needs to be asked here. And, you know, and this congressman's right. It's time to ask. It's time to get to rattle the goddamn tree to see what falls out. You know, we need to see what the hell is going on. Why is Pam dragging her heels? Why is she being slow? Okay? Because it doesn't look good for the administration, and especially for those who support Trump. I mean, even MAGA at this point must be getting kind of nervous about, you know, every time this topic gets brought up. They can't defend that because Trump won't give them anything to throw back. You see what I'm saying? All they can say is, oh, it's the Democrats at it again. Maybe so, but their question still remains. Why isn't this shit out there yet? Okay, what are they dragging their heels on? It doesn't take 2 or 3 months to fucking get their facts in order to release to the public. You know, clearly there's some hot shit there that they don't want anyone to know about. And what is it? You know? So, yeah, so even for Republicans, and especially those who are conspiracy thinkers, even they can't deny the fact that this looks very suspicious, okay? It does. It looks bad. They may not talk about it. They may not even say anything about it, okay? But you know, because they can come up like when they talked about the fucking, you know, Sandy Hook thing, and they were making all kinds of bullshit about that. These conspiracy thinkers have already covered this in their minds, but they won't talk about it because it's their beloved orange god that's involved. You know, and that's really the sad part of it is that these people excuse the most heinous crimes that Trump does, okay? But if he was a Democrat, they'd have had somebody off him already, I'm sure, because they never would have allowed any Democrat to get away with just one thing Trump's gotten away with already, okay? They would have hung the guy up by the highest tree. But with Trump in there, you know, all the vindictive little bastards that encompass MAGA, they're all hiding somewhere. They're retreating, okay? And they don't want their names brought up. That's in that list, you know. And certainly, if there's still any witnesses to what went on those years back, they're not going to be. Well, they're going to be put under a very. They're going to be scrutinized, okay? And like I said, they know who the names are. They redacted them, so we don't, but they know who they are. They saw the names before they marked over it, okay? Keep that in mind. People do know who they are. So let's go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me. At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
You see, at first, when someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. What eventually occurs is, first, homegrown industries start relying on government protection in the form of high tariffs. They stop competing and stop making the innovative management and technological changes they need to succeed in world markets. And then, while all this is going on, something even worse occurs. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. The result is more and more tariffs, higher and higher trade barriers, and less competition. So soon, because of the prices made artificially high by tariffs that subsidize inefficiency and poor management, people stop buying. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. The memory of all this occurring back in the 30s made me determined when I came to Washington to spare the American people the protectionist legislation that destroys prosperity. Now, it hasn't always been easy. There are those in the Congress, just as there were back in the 30s, who want to go for the quick political advantage, who risk America's prosperity for the sake of a short-term appeal to some special interest group, who forget that more than 5 million American jobs are directly tied to the foreign export business, and additional millions are tied to imports. For those of us who lived through the Great Depression, the memory of the suffering it caused is deep and searing. And today, many economic analysts and historians argue that high tariff legislation passed back in that period, called the Smoot-Hawley Tariff, greatly deepened the Depression and prevented economic recovery.
I'm going to need you all to run outside and check for pigs flying, because I'm about to say something positive about this administration. I haven't talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene in a minute. And that's because, thankfully, Donald Trump gave her a fake job to do. Chairwoman of the Doge Committee. And it's kept our little worker bee busy, out of sight and out of mind for the rest of us. Now, as we all know, Doge is supposedly in charge for getting rid of all the wasteful spending in our government. And I guess there isn't any left. They got it all. Someone give Marjorie Taylor Greene Employee of the Month. Because at their most recent hearing, they weren't discussing anything about wasteful spending. They wanted to talk about the fencing tournament with the trans athlete. And as usual with this administration, Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to pass off a doctored photo as fact. But luckily, Representative Melanie Stansberry from New Mexico was there to correct her.
Post that Mr. Lefelt put up. Mr. Lefelt came in here today saying that this is game day.
One moment, a point of order, please,
You're not.
Madam
Okay,
Chair, I have a point of order. The document that you have up behind you is a misrepresentation of the actual post.
Oh, God. You tried, Marjorie. You tried. This is how stupid this administration thinks their supporters are. And Marjorie Taylor Greene did not want to get called out. She started banging that gavel into oblivion, which gave the dudes at her gym a much-needed break. Those are her ex-husband's accusations, not mine. Watch her hammer her away.
Miss Stansbury, this is not a point of order.
The actual picture.
Miss Stansbury, you're not recognized. Miss Stansbury, you're not recognized. Miss Stansbury.
The good news is, Marjorie, if the whole Congress thing doesn't work out for you, you have a future in general contracting. Imagine how fast you could put up sheetrock. instead of wearing a sheet over her head. She tried desperately to silence Representative Stansbury, but she wasn't letting up. Watch this legend.
Policy, you were misrepresented. Miss Stansbury, you're not recognized. Did you feel you were in a safe environment?
What an icon. I can't tell you how much I've missed you, Marjorie. And to Representative Stansbury and all the members of Congress, continue to call them out. God, I needed that laugh. I know you all did too. Keep fighting. Anyways, bye.
Have you heard about the salt trick that's making men last for hours in bed? If not, pay close attention. Seriously, salt turned my husband into a bull in bed. He always had a sleepy worm and even used those little pills. But after he started doing this simple 15-second salt trick under his tongue, he tossed the pills away. The transformation was incredible. The worm turned into an iron anaconda, and even at 61, he's putting guys in their 20s to shame. I've never seen anything like it. Apparently, the salt turbocharges blood circulation down there by 34%, making it thicker, harder, and lasting longer than ever before. It even works for men over 70 or 80 because it's all natural. My friend's 78-year-old husband had been suffering from limpness since he was 43, and now she says she has to beg him for a break because he's making up for all those lost years. If you want to see how it works, my husband made a free video showing step-by-step how any man can do the salt trick at home. Just click on the link in the description or on the first comment pinned. Imagine making your woman scream, roll her eyes, and have her legs shaking tonight, then waking up tomorrow morning ready for another round with the tent pitched. As a woman, I can guarantee your wife will thank you for learning this little trick. So click on the link below and watch it while it's still online, because I'm not sure how long my husband is going to want to keep sharing the secret.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Welcome back. So, this second video I have here is from Dr. Russell Razak, and he's going to be talking about how he sees what's happening here with MAGA from his point of view, and the things that, you know, he's seen in the news and things like that. He feels that MAGA is collapsing and retreating from the front lines, as it were, in a very unusually quick way, which has never been seen before in this country, where, you know, where you got a president who was on top of the world one month and in January, and then a month or two later he's at the bottom. Okay, there's never been that kind of a change in a presidency in such a very short time. He's the first president that's ever had this happen to him. Okay, so let's go to that video here and listen to what he's got to say.
In a recent video, I talked about the way in which MAGA is on the retreat around the world. In election after election, in country after country around the world, anybody with even the slightest whiff of connection to Donald Trump, even the slightest hint of an ideological alliance with Donald Trump, is being battered at the ballot box. And as a result, MAGA and the populist right forces around the world are in retreat. Now the good news is that isn't just happening in the US, because a number of people commented in that video saying, hey, it's great to hear that's happening around the world, just wish that could happen in the States, wish the electorate was smart enough to do something similar there. Well, actually, there is good news on that front. I'm going to go into it in a second, just after a quick word about how you can support the channel. I hope you're enjoying the video. As a psychiatrist who's fascinated by the worlds of politics and economics and philosophy, I love making these videos, and if you'd like to see more of them, then please do like and subscribe and comment in this video. What you'll find is that there's a beautiful community growing up around this channel. We're all going through a national and international trauma right now because of what's happening and where our leaders are taking us. And in this channel you'll find people honestly sharing their situation and their distress, and other people responding with kindness, empathy and compassion. So please join this wonderful community that we're forming, join in the comments and the dialogue that's happening. So in the US right now, we're seeing election after election in which Republicans are significantly underperforming their performance in the 2024 election by substantial margins, the kind of drop that you wouldn't really see in the space of just 1 or 2 months. We're also seeing Democrats substantially overperforming their results from the 2024 election in election after election, in state after state, in red states and blue states, but particularly also in swing states. So for example, in Florida, in 2 statewide special elections, 2 Florida Republicans ended up underperforming the 2024 result by 16 and 22 points. That's a massive drop from the votes that Republicans got only a couple of months ago. Susan Crawford, a woman who ran for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, despite a massive investment from Elon Musk, huge amount of money being poured into that race against that candidate in favor of Republicans, she won the race and got 11% more votes than any Democrat did in 2024. Again, a massive rise in just the space of a couple of months, and against a massive investment against her and a huge turnout from people who wanted to defeat the Republicans. Now, of course, Wisconsin was a swing state, and so was Pennsylvania. And there's been a couple of elections in Pennsylvania, statewide elections, where 2 candidates from the Democrats for the statewide legislature increased their vote share by 15 and 17% against the 2024 vote. Again, a massive swing towards Democrats in just a couple of months. And it resulted in one of the seats, which was formerly a Republican seat, flipping over to the Democrats. In total, there have been 16 statewide races across the US in the last couple of months. And on average, there's been an 11% swing towards the Democrats. Again, this is the kind of thing you don't see happen in just a couple of months. This level of change takes a lot longer than that to happen. So these are the kind of tremors that we can hear on the earth. It's a sort of subtle shifts that you can notice if you really pay attention to what's happening in the elections. The rumbles that are going on just beneath the ground. And you compare that as well with the protests that are expanding from town after town and city after city. And you realize that something really is shifting over there too. You compare it to the opinion polls as well, where Trump is now less popular at this stage in his presidency than any president in the entirety of American history. And you realize it's not just abroad where MAGA is in retreat, it's in the US too, and it's in every state, blue or red, and at every level. MAGA is clearly in capitulation. Having said that, it doesn't mean that, of course, the game is up. In fact, in the short term, it probably means things might get worse, because for Trump's psyche, he cannot handle any sense of things turning against him. He has to convince himself that the opposite is true. Unlike other politicians who are keenly looking at the runes, keenly listening to the ground to try to sense the vibrations of where things are going, Trump may sometimes sense these things, but he then has to react opposite to it, to blow his chest out and pretend everything is good. So what that is likely to do is to make Trump more aggressive, more polarizing, more partisan, more hateful. And of course, he and his party aren't going to give up power without a fight. And that fight isn't going to follow by any existing norms and rules. The more he realizes he's becoming unpopular, the more he will try to deny it. The more he will try to manipulate the system and rig things to stay on top. But on the other hand, the more people there are rising up in their own way, voting against, marching against, protesting against, and committing themselves against Trump and this regime. So things are going to build up to a crescendo. And so that's how they may well get worse before they get better. because the conflict is brewing. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's the people who will ultimately prevail. Not just because it's America. It tends to happen everywhere in the world. Look even at apartheid South Africa, where a fascistic regime tried to imprison and kill everybody they didn't like, especially the leaders of those who fought for freedom. But in the end, even they couldn't succeed and they were overturned. And it's no coincidence that a lot of the leaders and the background oligarchs supporting and funding and fueling Trump's regime are themselves from South Africa. Whether it's Elon Musk or Peter Thiel, there are several others of them who've come from South Africa. It's almost as if they're refugees from a paradise of fascism that they once lived in, that they're trying to recreate now in the States. Well, even there, it was overturned. As long as the people are coming together, as long as they're uniting around the knowledge that this is not what they want, and even for those who voted for these guys, this isn't what they voted for. That tells us that eventually they will be defeated. The number will be up, and they will eventually be overcome.
Okay, you know, one of the other parts of this equation that he come up with to be able to, you know, figure out what the hell's going on with MAGA. Whether you're MAGA or you're a Democrat, the number one priority, and I think it's been said before many times, for people when they vote for president is their own personal money, okay, the economy, being able to buy stuff, okay, having enough money to feed themselves and to be able to get health care when they need it. Okay, those things are always at the forefront, and I think Republicans go to great lengths to try to distract people from thinking those thoughts, because they know on that score they're not winning anything. Republicans have been lousy when it comes to the economy. They have a history of that. They've been lousy with trying to deal with health care because they try to stop it every time people try to reform it so it works better. Okay, so they're not going to get into those discussions with Democrats and voters. Okay, they're not going to get into those conversations. So what they do is they pit people against each other to get people's anger up over a certain group of people, like Trump did. Okay, that's how they keep their voters engaged, is through hatred. Keep them angry, keep them mad, keep them focused on the guy behind the curtain, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Okay, that's what they do. But you see, now it's gotten so bad that the two things have become one, and that one is corruption. Corruption in the White House is becoming the forefront of everybody's attention. Not so much the economy or the fact that there's illegals, it's the fact that we got a president who is not respecting the Constitution, and he's doing exactly the opposite of what they voted him in there to do. Okay? And he's thumbing his nose up at the law. He's at war with the courts. Okay? He's trying to be a dictator, and I don't think anybody, if you're really an American, really wants to see this continue. Okay? Sure, you got your issues and stuff like that, but you're not going to get things that you want taken care of if the guy in the White House has got his own fucking agenda and his ideas are going to take precedent over yours. Okay? So that means if you voted for this guy because you thought he was going to help you with the economy, forget it. It's not going to happen. If you voted for this guy because you thought he was going to help with healthcare, forget it. Ain't going to happen. Okay, he's already torched all the departments that mean anything to the government for the reasons why we have it. Okay, so that means he doesn't care about you, common citizen. Okay, he cares only about himself. The tariffs, he don't care if that hurts you, if you can't buy any more stuff from China. Who cares? That's what he's thinking. You know, he's just putting this shit out there to ruin everything in this country, which seems to be his only motive here, because I can't think of any other reason why a sitting president would deliberately sabotage his own country. You know, and I think I've kind of hit on that a little bit in a few videos back. Like, Christ, is this guy a plant by the Democrats to make the Republicans look so bad, okay, that no person in this country would ever vote for a Republican for at least 2 generations? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I think I know it sounds conspiratorial, but you got to wonder, how can somebody completely you know, fuck up a job as president the way Trump has already. Okay? I mean, you got to try. You know, an average citizen in this country could do better than him right now. They really could. You take any person walking the street right now who knows what the issues are, would get into the White House and work on those issues, okay? They wouldn't be doing what Trump's doing right now. So, MAGA is finding out, you know, they didn't own the libs at all. You know, they ruined themselves, is what they did. They put in a Trojan horse, and that thing opened up, and now now MAGA is under the fucking gun here, basically. You know, they're reaping all the failures of what they did, which, you know, was kind of poetic justice, that, you know, they thought so highly of the guy, and now the guy's turned on them. Okay, I mean, the Democrats can see this is like a, you know, a biblical story here being played out. You know, about people being misled by a false idol, and now their lives are completely destroyed. So I can see that MAGA right now is licking its wounds here, because you got a lot of people who voted for Trump coming out and doing videos online, being interviewed by the press, people who said they voted for Trump and now they regret it. I mean, you got a lot of stories coming out right now of people who have buyer's remorse, and that started not soon after Trump was sworn in. You know, think about that. When people started reading Project 2025 and they started seeing what was in there when they should have looked before, now they see that, oh shit, Democrats weren't feeding us crap. It was true. All the things they were trying to tell us, it was true. You know? So, you know, they're going through this problem now where they're watching, you know, their own voters being eaten up by Trump's administration, because look, a lot of these people live in red states, and they did say that a lot of the things that he's going to enact from that Project 2025 are going to hit those states the hardest. Okay, and so those states which are already struggling, okay, badly, because they got Republican governors for that, for no, you know, they're going to see the harder times, as opposed to the other states that where the Democrat governors will try to stand their ground against Trump and protect what they have. So I just think that no matter what happens, we're all going to have to take a bite out of the shit sandwich that's been given to us. And you know, when people have no fucking money to buy things, okay, and when they go to a store and the fucking shelves are empty, hey, they're going to think about who's the president, and it's going to be Trump. They're not going to look at Biden and say, oh, he's the one. No, they're going to look at the fucking guy who's in there now. All right? Who's in there now? Because when Biden was in there, you could still buy your things. Okay? And now, Trump's president, and things are starting to disappear. Your choices are limited. Your money is dwindling. Okay? Inflation is not going down. So who's the president now? Now, no one's going to believe Trump when he says, oh, this is a result of Biden. Oh, no. A while ago, you were sitting there praising the economy as roaring and everything. Now, all of a sudden, it's Biden's fault. Okay? Because you couldn't sell the other bullshit story. And now you can't sell this one either. So Americans' opinion of Trump has diminished considerably, and it's going to continue to diminish considerably as time goes on, because the more stuff he does, which is every fucking day, some other goddamn thing is brought out in the news that something he did that's going to hurt Americans every fucking day. So as he keeps pounding on us, you know, kicking the knees out from under us, okay, that's only going to make him and his Republican MAGA party there shrink and shrink and shrink. Okay, they're going to become less of a force to be concerned with as, you know, the Democrats pick up all that support that they've lost, that the Republicans lost, and they sail into the midterms. There's no reason why they won't be able to clean up next year. Okay, no fucking reason at all why they can't gain seats. But for Trump, who isn't really listening to Congress or the Senate right now, it's not going to matter to him. He's going to continue his fight with the courts, and he's going to continue bucking the system. Okay? And by the time he's done with his term in office, okay, he can forget about running for a third term, because if they can't impeach him by then, no one in this fucking country is going to vote for him for a third time, okay? So he ain't going to do it. There's not going to be a third term with Trump, okay? Because he's already set his fate, what's going to happen to his presidency. It's going to end in disaster, either through impeachment or just simply runs the clock out, okay, and he finishes with the fourth term, okay? Because the country is going to be completely ruined, in shambles, and people are going to be so fucking pissed at him, he'll have to live underground in order to avoid what's coming, okay? So that's kind of where we're headed. I mean, I see these things happening quickly, okay? When you enact executive orders, as he's been doing, these things don't take time to go into place. They happen like that. Okay, that's why they're only supposed to be used in emergency situations. But he's been declaring every situation an emergency that he's been writing executive orders for, and that's not right. That's wrong, and the Supreme Court said so. Okay, he isn't giving anyone any justification for what he's been doing and using the executive order powers for. He hasn't been doing a very good job of that. In fact, I don't think he really gives a shit. He just asks somebody else to come up with a reason. I'm going to sign this. You just tell the press what, to justify. He does it. And unfortunately, nobody seems to have the balls to question him before they enact any of these orders. Where are these people that were the checks and balances that we're supposed to have in the system? Where the hell is that? Why isn't it working? I remember in school about how, you got one department, and overseeing this department. There's supposed to be all kinds of oversight. Where is it now? So, like I said, it's going to happen that Trump's failure will finally eat him up in the end, okay? I don't see that he's going to recover. Nobody believes anything he says anymore now, okay? He does these press conferences where he yak. Nobody's listening to him anymore when he talks because they know he's lying. 5 minutes doing a fact check on him, on anything he says, and you'll find the truth behind what he's talking about, okay? His lies are so obvious, it's easy to uncover. It doesn't take a super genius to be able to figure out when he's telling a fucking lie. All right? There's some people who read body language for a living, because they're like interrogators or something, and they got Trump nailed down. They know when he's lying. They can see it. He has a habit of doing things when he's talking that gives him away all the time. Like some people when they're playing poker or something, if you play it enough, the other players will be able to know when you're bluffing. Well, same thing works when someone's lying, okay? I mean, you can tell when someone's telling a fucking lie, and there's been people who and I think if you go on YouTube, you'll find people who do that, like retired FBI interrogators or something like that. They know when Trump's lying, and they can tell when he's, making stuff up, which isn't really a lie, but just like making up a story, and embellishing aspects of it, twisting the truth, as it were. Okay, and it's just interesting to see that he's got so many tells. That I don't think anyone would want to play poker because he would just give himself away. He'd lose every hand, But yeah, he's that bad at lying. People can see it right off the bat. So. All these things that Dr. Zach had pointed out that's going on, it's true. These things are happening. He talked about elections going the other way, MAGA's losing in different places, and he mentioned how the rest of the world because of the United States' example of what we've done here, they're scared now to vote for conservatives around the world, because they're all afraid now that they're going to end up with a Trump themselves, because they see the United States burning over here, and they're like, we're staying the hell away from so-and-so because he's, you know, he's like Trump, or he's in league with Trump in some fucking way, okay? And so, yeah, people, you know, Trump has been a very bad example for MAGA. MAGA thought that this guy was he was the king. He was the fucking guy they were waiting for their whole fucking life, okay? And nope. You guys shit before you took your pants off, okay? He ain't the guy. He was never the guy. We tried to tell you this. He's the worst person you could have picked of all the people that was running for the Republican Party. He was the worst choice you could have ever made, only because he entertained you, and you guys fell for that shtick, okay? You guys were suckers, you know? And, you know, since Trump doesn't like suckers and losers, okay, he don't like you either, because you were dumb enough to vote for him, okay? So, like I said, it's just very telling, you know, that other people are seeing that, you know, by just taking a few steps back, you can look at what's happening in the world and you can see people are getting pissed, okay? They're getting pissed with the way things are. They see what's happening in this country, and they're getting pissed that the same could happen to their countries. They don't want this happening, okay? They're scared to death about what's happening here, because this isn't 1939, okay? This is 2025, and this country going into a fascist regime mode with our country armed to the teeth with nuclear missiles is a danger to all, okay? Now, if this administration has no ethics and no morality, it would be easy for them to just give Trump the football and say, yeah, push the goddamn buttons, okay? Because nobody's stopping him as it is now. So if he wanted to nuke anywhere in the world, you know, if he got a hair up his ass and wanted to do it, he'd do it. This should scare the whole world, that we got this guy here in the United States of America here, sitting in the White House, putting the criminal in charge of the police department. You know, think about this for a minute. The whole reason why we don't put criminals as president is because of just that. The responsibility that is leveled on that office is monumental. Why do you think these presidents look like they aged 100 years in just 8 years' time as they are president, okay? Because it's a big fucking job. You got a lot of things you got to deal with, a lot of internal fighting and arguing and stuff going on all the fucking time. It was so bad, I mean, Richard Nixon, who was weak-minded as it was when he went in there, he couldn't take it. He was on medication, trying to hold himself together, but he was falling apart. It's a big fucking job. Too big for the likes of Trump to be in there, especially when they're already compromised to begin with. Compromised in a very bad way. You know, everybody says, you know, he's at Putin's beck and call. Well, you better fucking believe it. Okay? Putin helped him a lot. Okay? And I'm sure, you know, Trump returned the favor in whatever way that he ain't going to tell us that he has, but he's obviously given back to Putin in different ways. And it's easy for him to sit there in the White House and, you know, write out executive orders and do things like in that fashion to force people to capitulate. But people are only going to cross, you know, a line to a point where they're going to say, okay, I can't go this far. I can't do this. You know, people at some point in the government, I don't know who it'll be, the FBI, ICE, somebody, is going to say, this is enough. We've done enough of this. Okay, people are hating us now. Okay, what are we going to do? We cannot keep following these goddamn directives. You know, then they're going to, you know, that's when, you know, the courts will get back their power to force Trump to capitulate to them. Okay, in the meantime, we got to go through this shit first before we see that. Okay, so it's Trump is putting everybody to the test. People, like Pam Bondi, who might be on top of the world right now. The more shit that happens while Trump's president is going to be more shit that's going to land on her, because she's the attorney general and she's supposed to be working for the United States people, not the United States government or the president. Okay? She is our attorney and she's too busy covering Trump's ass. That's going to backfire on her at some point. Okay? It has to. You can't be doing this shit and then saying, "Oh, I stand with the Constitution." No. The Constitution requires that you work for us, for the people. Okay? You're supposed to be watching what Trump's doing. When he does something, when he fucks up something, that's your job. You got to step in there. Okay? Why do you think Nixon fired his attorney general before he got his ass resigned out, Because he was doing his job to hold Nixon accountable. Okay? And Nixon didn't like that, so he fired him. Well, Pam Bondi's not going to do that, apparently. She's going to follow along whatever Trump says to keep her cushy little job. But at some point, she's going to reach a line where it's going to test her. And if she crosses it, something bad will happen. And if she doesn't cross it, something bad will happen. I mean, she's really putting herself in a corner here. So I know a lot of people are saying, I'd love to see her get what's coming to her. Well, she just might, because she's not leaving herself any avenue of escape. So, yeah, anyway, that's pretty much it. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So subscribe, comment, and share, and keep your ears open for any health issues, and be neighborly and help each other out wherever you live. There's people that'll probably be in need at some point, and they can use your help. So be helpful. Be American. Talk to you later.